So hi everybody, welcome back. This is another diecast review, still of that series arriving in Italy about the Formula 1 cars. It is not the usual one about Ferrari, that is the one that I usually buy mostly right now, because they have more interesting stuff, despite that one that I'm showing you is a double that I took, and with whom I'm planning to do some little modification. Specifically, we'll add some tobacco decal, to make something extremely easy. I see that exists a kind of underground world for that type of models where you can add decals and other smaller detail, very easy stuff, not really in a modeling level, but just probably adding the tobacco decal will give a lot more of appeal. I just took it away from his showcase, that usually in my video I nearly never open them. I mean, I can do it when they have this solid showcase in plastic, transparent plastic, because it's quite easy. There is just a couple of stickers in the front and in the back of the box. Instead, I nearly never open this type of model, because this was the first series, and this is also the object that it is about the video that I'm going to make now. Instead, this usually I do not open because they didn't provide at the time the plastic solid showcase. It's possible to buy like an aftermarket object, and it's really the difference in price, because they are sold here in Italy for 30 euros, and those ones are sold for 25 euros. So that 5 euros is exactly the transparent showcase, so it's still kind of affordable place. The size is exactly the same, so if you take that showcase and you place it over it, it should fit with any type of problem, and so I was just preparing that model because the decals, the tobacco decals, are arriving in a couple of days. I took it in eBay. Always remember that also that quality of that decals is never at the level of an ordinary model, so they are much more thicker than the ordinary decals, so requires a lot of liquid fluid to be applied in a proper position, not really for the straight parts like the wings or the flat areas, but where you have a kind of engraved details or panel lines, you have to do some magic to make them fit properly, as well as I am planning to do even on that Ferrari, because they have quite very deep panel lines. Usually, they are made in Zamac die cast, so is a white metal used for this type of model, so the panel line are very big usually. It's kind of unrealistic for the scale, but it's very easy to make a wash with the black oil paints to make the panel line come a little bit more to life, to make a little extra details. As well as I noted that when you remove with the special screw, they have some triangular head screw, and my tip is to buy this stuff from Amazon, and I took a set of 6. They cost nearly €1 each, so it's not this big investment, and I think the one that I used there was the 2.5. Many modelers didn't know how to do it, or they usually do with the flat screwdriver. You can do it the same, despite sometimes the screw is quite tight inside the model, so it's a little bit nasty to take it around, and so I decided to buy them. It's a pair of 6 you find in Amazon, and I think you pay for, including the expedition with the Prime, I paid 6 euro, so it's worth it to have it. It's just a special head that is not so easy to find in the ordinary set of headers for screwdrivers. When I took it away, I also noted that the plastic that usually folded the wheels, because also that Formula 1 car as well as this Formula 1 car, you see they are constantly this type of problems that I always show in my video, that the front wheels, sometimes also the rear wheels, are completely bent. As you see also this one, this is the right wheel, it's completely bended again and again and again, so probably something, I think, in the assembly line at this point. And I was noting that of course the part that you take it away features a engraved number 43. That was the issue that arrived in the shops. Number 43 was that one of the Ferrari collection, so they are probably specifically made for this, and probably a little too bit tight for the model, all because this is a kind of vacuum form process that they do with machines. Is a vacuum machine making this stuff. I remember that it was quite tricky, to do it for the company that I was working with in the 90s. It was the Collector Armor company, owned by the same guy from ENG company, and we had the same problem to do models with this kind of vacuum form part that was suspending the model, avoiding to have some heat during the transportation. But to develop this stuff was a little bit tricky. They had special stuff to do this stuff. So this was specifically made for the number 43 that I have no use, like, because like I said, it was a double and I wanted to fix it a little because all the issues of the Ferrari 2004 arrived with bend rear wing and bend front wing, so they all had the same identical ugly nasty problems. So let's focus now about this new issue. This is a very interesting car, you know. So this was the 1967 champion car driven by Dennis Hulme. I think the car in the season never won any race, you know. It was just a Brabham that was constantly reliable and never give up. So it was here the 67 where they had incredible great champion, you know, like Bandini, Scarfiotti, Jim Clark, the Ferrari guys, you know, Chris Hammond. So it was really Danny Hulme, of course, Bruce McLaren. It was all the dream team. It was operative in that years in the Formula One. And if you see, you know, the characteristic of the car, you know, I mean, if you want to make a comparison, just to see the evolution, this is the nicest of this type of collection. And this is not a modern car, this is a car of 20 years ago, you know, 2004, 20 years ago, Formula One, so it's already prehistorical in Formula One. But look at it compared to a car that was like what, 30 years before, 35 years before, like this. You see, it was it looked like a toy, you know, much smaller, much thinner, much less of everything, you know, the model is indeed constantly well done. They didn't feature neither the seat belts, you know. Of course these cars had the seat belts. The only Formula One cars that didn't have the seat belt was the one of the 50s, you know, because they were still thinking that probably if the car had a rollover or capsize, the pilot still can fly away or move quickly from the car, but this one had seat belts. And the details, you know, is of course kind of basic for the type of model that you take. For example, all the snakes coming from the V8 engines, they were painted in that type of unrealistic white, because in reality they were made in ceramic, so they still didn't have the technology to do proper stuff like on the modern cars. In all the area of the engine, you know, quite basic detail, you know, very easy, that just gives an idea of how it was. Of course, if you make a model factory here of this car, I don't know if they really made the Brabham BT24, but if you made a proper model of this, this will have anyway a lot of detail, extra spring, extra wire, so it's much more detailed in a conventional model, you know. So this is just basically an interesting way to have a model like this in the collection, you know, and mostly to see the difference between the following cars, the stuff that arrived lately in Formula One season, you know. Already looking this model compared, for example, with the 1980s car, there is already a huge difference, because they started to use the wings, the car became completely different, you know, and that was basically what, 20 years. So yes, is a lot, but not like this one, you know. 67 is I say that was before 35. I think it's me that is an old guy, you know. It's over 50, so of course is extremely old stuff. The wheels are quite well done, you know. You have that stuff that printed over that resemble a little the pattern of the Goodyear tires, you know. In this season there was Goodyear's and Firestone providing the wheels for a Formula One car, but they basically was something extremely simple, you know, and extremely dangerous. Of course, it was a season where a lot of pilots had to race in extremely dangerous tracks, and the car was basically a coffin, you know. There is just really a coffin, you know. There is just the pilot, and aside there is the fuel tank and the engine, so there is absolutely neither criteria of protection for the pilot in front of the radiator. Of course, it will be extremely fun to drive because the car is extremely basic, so all the weight of this stuff, I think it was around 400 to 500 kilos, not more. And the power was anyway 300 to 400 horsepower. You know, I think the most powerful engine they had in the 67 season was the one provided by Honda that had over 400 horsepower. You know, if you think that today in 2024 they are just presented the brand new Ferrari, the F80, that is featuring 1200 horsepower, so it is 4 times more the power of a Formula One car, you know. And so it's something very important. Read about the story. I will not keep it longer here in my video, because that was mostly just to present this wonderful, this in my opinion is a wonderful object, you know, to have in the collection, because there is absolutely very few stuff and absolutely nothing in 124 scale. You know, I think there was some old Eller about the Lotus 49 and maybe the Ferrari Good and the Matra. I think I go just by memory about this very old kit. That is a kind of obliged choice if you want to do a model in 124 scale, but of course, being models coming from the early 70s, they require a huge scratch build level detail. So I don't know really if it is worth it, you know, and mostly they had all the problem of the wheels that are not so well done, so it's really something belonging to the past, and that probably in a kit box they just have a value like a collectible items. I don't really think that you can go for it for a decent model of such cars in a 124 scale. As usual, also the finishing is always nice, you know, it's always this British racing green and the gold stripe over. They were nearly all looking similar, you know, because they were resembling the same, nearly the same artwork that the Lotus had. The difference was that the Lotus had the yellow line, this had the gold line, so it was really simple, you know. Ferrari had the white line or completely red depending from the season. Then the Lotus 49 became in the gold leaf livery, became red and white, because then the 67 season was very interesting because it was the last season of the Formula 1 where they basically didn't have the tobacco sponsorship coming into the game. So all the cars, if you take a look about all the cars of the 60s and the years before until 1967, they didn't start to have any major logo over. You know, you can find something by Ford, something by the maker, the name of the pilot, but nearly never the tobacco sponsorship over them. It was the tobacco company entering lately from 68, 69, and all the money became bigger and all the category became much bigger, like it did in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, until today, you know, where tobacco is constantly present, constantly forbidden. Tobacco is bad, you know, to smoke cigarette is bad, so you don't have to promote something like that. But in the 70s that was another story. So that's it, very simple, you know. Don't expect so much by this type of model, but expect that the subject is really, in my opinion, one of the nicest ever. You know, it's really a cigar, they used to call them back in the days, you know. Of course, also the mesh over the headers are just made like kind of painted plastic, you know, and there is also some scratch detail under where you can see the black spot over the headers. Don't look at the lens flare coming from me, but so the details is what you can get at this level. This is a car that probably had to be made with a proper detail. We became like a clock mechanism, you know, where you see all the spring and all the cable working, so it will be extremely eye-catching. But unfortunately is not possible to do unless you decide to take this model, to strip it down completely and rebuild it completely. I think it's much more worth it than to search for the previous Eller kit box that I mentioned before in my video. That's it, guys. So this is really a must to have. I don't know about the others, you know, that was, as I said, my mistake previously. So of course we don't trash it, we make it something with that to make it a little nicer, then maybe I gift it, or even better, I sell. But this is instead something that you absolutely cannot miss, because the car is simply fantastic. Go for it. This is a must to have. See you in the next. Thank you.